This episode is absolutely fabulous. This is Elisabeth, and she's sharing her personal experience with postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety. And as a result, she created a practice that works with clients, works with women to help them live a better life. She wants to bring awareness to the fourth trimester because that's the most important piece, one of the most important pieces. Oh, this is a delightful episode. And if you feel like this doesn't pertain to you, it does. Because guess what? We all need some care. We all, at one point or another, need help. And maybe this episode doesn't pertain to you, but maybe the way in which we speak about things, mental health, depression, and anxiety, maybe that's where you're at today. And maybe you need to receive it in another way. Maybe the message is supposed to get through to you in a different way. Well, that's what this show's about today. So if you're in this reality as a new mom, a new parent, you know someone who is, you got friends, you got kids, whatever, or you just want to listen and come on the ride, this episode is the one for you. The mother brain is something that is extraordinary, is it not?
I totally agree. Actually, today I was visiting a very good friend who had a baby like 3 months ago. And she said, my brain is just a sieve. It's insane. I am a college educated woman. I can barely remember where the toilet is on most days. So yeah, I
Oh,
had that too. I remember like when I was pregnant, I had such a bad case of pregnancy brain. So I was driving like, in the street and I was like, I've never seen this street in my whole life before. Oh, look, there's my house.
I can oh look, there's my house. Okay, well, I can attest to that because I have had four children, and with my last child, so my last is 7 years difference between my third and my fourth. And we had planned it that way, but I was blindingly tired, and you know the tired I'm talking about. And I saw a pothole in the middle of the road, and I was like, there's a pothole. There it goes. Ka-dunk, 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 ka-dunk. And you're like, well, okay, that was great. And I damaged the car, but what was I to do? I have never, my fourth child was, I think she slept maybe 3 hours a night.
Yeah, my first and only one, she didn't sleep for the first 3 months basically. Neither did I. So I feel you. I like yes.
Well, cheers to motherhood and cheers to being a mother because this is one tall order for us as women. And I wanted to commend you because you it's really special to come across someone like yourself who really takes the life experience that you've had and all of the vulnerability and the rawness, and you bring it in and you're sharing it with other people, making it real every day. Every time you share it, it it almost it either um opens the wound, or like it's almost like there's some loose ends always. And so that's hard, especially with postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety. You're reopening something, you're never quite closing it, but you're making a choice to do that for yourself and for other people's well-being. And I want to thank you for that. That is just so beautiful, and I really, really appreciate it.
Well, that's so sweet. Yeah, I totally understand what you mean, and it is. I think in this day and age, it's good. But you still have the generation of my parents that are now 65 plus, and mental health is not a topic they're very comfortable around. And so I know that when I talk about my struggles and my postpartum depression and the things that I went through, it's somewhat uncomfortable for people. But I firmly believe that if even one mom gets
Yeah.
seeks help because of that, then it's all worth it. And to be honest, even like the older generation, whenever I'm honest about my struggles, they always either say, okay, I've been through this myself, or I know someone very, very close to me that has gone through the same thing.
May I just let's just start this
Yeah.
piece because this is one of my questions, which so people before us, our mothers, our grandmothers, they did some heroic feats in child development. They, I'm now in menopause and
Also lovely, right?
yeah, it's beautiful. And again, when you become a mother, no one really talks to you about the details. And then when you move into menopause, nobody really talks to you about the details. It's my generation now of women and your generation that are saying, hey, we're not doing this anymore because
Yeah.
we actually want to talk about this stuff. Like
Yeah.
we have words, we have communication skills. Let's use these to our utmost so that we can empower our daughters-in-laws. As an auntie, I can empower my nieces and offer the men in my life some wisdom about what happens and how we get to do this. And so when you speak to the older generation who says, I don't really get your mental health struggles, would you mind maybe just giving us some insight into that? Like, what does that look like? Do you say, I'm struggling with my mental health, and then that person goes, what are you talking about?
Yeah, so I'm all for breaking generational trauma patterns, right? Because, yeah, that's just a good thing. Yeah, I noticed it, I think, when I was in the midst of my postpartum depression. My husband's been so supportive during that time, and also my parents, they were super supportive. But I remember this one instance where my husband was in the kitchen with my dad, and he was like making me a tea or something, and my dad asked him very shyly, like, yeah, I think Elizabeth is not feeling so well, right? And
Mm.
my husband, bless his heart, he was like, no, she's straight up suicidal, she's not doing well at all. And then my dad went, oh, okay, yes.
Okay.
But hats off to him and my mom, because they helped me out so much, and they did try to understand, but that's like a little bit of the dichotomy that you see there.
Is it something off topic to share about this suicidal
No,
ideation, or would
no,
you?
not at all. What do you want to hear? I'm an open book.
Well, I'd love to know. I know all of our guests would love to know your journey. So maybe perhaps you begin to talk about the moment where you realized that this idea of motherhood, who you were supposed to be. I have this written down here. This was my own take on my own self, but I had my notes which were who I said I would be and what I said I was going to do, how I thought I was going to handle the moments versus the mother that I actually am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for the longest time, I wanted to be a mom. I think even when I was like not a teenager, but like early adolescence.
Mm.
I wanted to be a wife and a mom, and like, I'm academically schooled, so there's also a big part of like me that's career and ambition. But I think that the mom side was, to my core, very important. So I did have this ultimate view and fairy tale land idea of what I would be like as a mom. And so I had so much baby fever. Oh God, like even 2 years before me and my husband got married, like I would see all the babies with strollers and I'd be like, oh, I just want a baby. And so yeah, we did a lot of things. Then we got married, and then I got pregnant, and I was so happy. And then when I was five weeks pregnant, which is really really early,
Mm.
got HG, which is hyperemesis gravidarium. It's like the nausea disease.
Oh,
So
well,
I spent 9 months in bed. Yeah, which was pure hell because I went from being like I had my own business, I was a career-driven woman, and I had planned to take a year off to be a full-time mom and like really experience that and everything. But I didn't expect my whole life to just stop, just flat out, just end. And so I think looking back, I was already a bit suicidal in that first trimester, to be honest,
Mm.
already. But because this was this dream of me, you know, like to become a mom, I really felt like I had to get through it. So I don't know, one way or another I did. And then I gave birth to my baby girl in January 22. By the way, giving birth was the easiest part of the whole pregnancy, so that should tell you something.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
And then I had a bit of complications, so I ended up in the ER. I was pretty early on separated from my daughter. Um, and I was like, okay, now we can finally begin, right? Now I can finally be that mom that I want to be, you know, the caring, the loving, I wanted like one baby on each boob, right? I wanted to have like a whole soccer team in my house. Um, so that was the ideal mom, and would always be there, and I would have like this apron around me. I would cook for them, make homemade snacks, and but I would still be doing things that I love and be my own person. Pretty delusional. Um,
Delusional. Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, I think around week 8, that my daughter was 8 weeks old, I was just, my reserves were gone. There were already not a lot left from the whole pregnancy. I didn't sleep. I got so stuck in an anxiety spiral that I wasn't able to sleep. I
Oh,
wasn't able to eat. I was breastfeeding, so you know, like my body was eating itself a bit because I wasn't eating and feeding myself well. And that's when I truly started to get really suicidal, I would say. It wasn't to the point where I was already thinking about ways of doing it, but it was just a really strong general feeling that I felt in every cell of my being that I just wanted everything to stop.
wow.
And that's something I hear very often with the moms I see in my practice, my private practice. But yeah, that all encompassing feeling of just like I thought, you know, being put in jail or being put in solitary in jail or getting a really bad accident and being in the hospital would be like 10 times better than the reality I was living with what was
Wow.
happening with me.
Question in that. So even through so you couldn't get out of bed for from 5 weeks on, and that was jail in so many ways to you, and imprisonment because again, it's this death of a dream of what you envisioned for yourself, and
Yeah,
here you have this life where you live very independently. Your body
especially
works
that.
for you. You say what you like, you determine, and then all of a sudden when you get pregnant, for some of those who have had what you had, um, you don't have the control. And it is just the most terrifying, debilitating thing that could happen to a woman while you're trying to nurture and love what is happening to you. You're trying to love the process.
Yeah.
Did you feel like there was a disconnect that happened somewhere along the line?
Yeah, definitely. So you're really hitting the hammer on the nail there with the going from, because I feel that modern women are really, you know, in charge of our own journey, and that's great. And like
Mhm.
we're taking, like, it's our book that we're writing and we're doing things. And especially that's for me, like I'm an only child and my parents really raised me to be super independent, and I am, and I at least I was before my pregnancy. So I thought, you know, this pregnancy was also so, was gonna be something of me. Of course, it was also my husband and we were in it together, but it was
Right.
gonna be such a me thing because I was nourishing this beautiful baby inside of me, and it was supposed to be that experience. And like the disconnect indeed in that where I just, like, even my mind started slipping away. It was just
In
the
what
the
way?
worst. Um that I was awake for so long in periods of time that I started not per se hallucinating, but more. I never really slipped into a psychosis, but you have that borderline where you start to envision things that are not really happening in reality. So I wasn't even like I couldn't even read a book, so that was something that was so innate to me.
Oh,
Read the newspaper. Like I had to eventually I was able to call someone and I was like, I want to stop my newspaper subscription because I just can't read it. And that felt like such a failure to me. The whole experience felt like I was failing a very core part of who I am supposed to be as a woman and as a person. So yeah, that was not great.
no, failing a core part of me is what you just said, and
Yeah,
I hear you. I hear you. That is it is uncomfortable.
yeah,
Like to sit in it, and the knowledge of that for me is just hearing you say that is genuinely uncomfortable because I've I I've been down the road you're talking about, not to the degree that you're saying. And of course, one of the pieces about this is incredibly complex. So women do not show up with the same problem or the same symptom and or the same progression. And some
yeah,
women who have when they're nauseous from the get-go and they're dizzy and they've got vertigo and they cannot get out of bed, they have that baby and it is over and they are ready to roll. And so it is not just this one size fits all
no.
in this situation that you're talking about. Now, especially I just to answer one more question about the suicide piece and then moving on. So when did you vocalize it to someone and how did you do that and what was their response and then, that sort of thing?
So I think I didn't vocalize it during my pregnancy. Looking back, obviously, with the knowledge I have now, I should have, but it was also mid-corona time, so like the healthcare system was just overwhelmed with everything. But the horrible suicidal thoughts that I started to have when my baby was born, at first, obviously, I was extremely ashamed, extremely embarrassed. But most of all, I was very afraid that my baby would get taken away from me. Because yeah, like what you just said, it's not one size fits all. So my postpartum depression and anxiety really gave way to a feeling that I had to protect my baby at all costs. So like some women are like, oh, I don't really want to do anything to do with my baby, or have other sorts of symptoms, like how they experience it. But for me, the thing was is that I just had to be near my baby all the time. That was like the single thing that kept me alive, basically, still. Because I had to be there for her. So I was afraid of losing that and therefore my only connection to this life. Um, but towards when it got really bad, I told my husband and I said it's not supposed to feel like this. This is I can't go on like this anymore. And then I also told my mom, and that was actually a very much a realization moment. I think I've talked about this before, but me and my mom were standing over the crib, like looking at my baby and like talking about it. And then I was constantly saying these things like, oh, I think she has this kind of character. I want to make sure that she gets attention on this. I was telling all these things about like a future life,
Uh-huh.
her future life,
Right.
but in no sense was I there. And so that's when I knew, okay, so I'm not envisioning a future where I'm here with my baby. I'm telling other people how to take care of her. And that was really the moment also my mom realized,
Wow.
okay, this is not good. Let's go get some help right now.
Wow. 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 So you were prefacing basically this, almost leaving a verbal note to say, here's what we need to do. Here's how we're
Yeah,
going to do this.
yeah,
Yet, yet something is interesting when what I hear is that you're saying, so I needed to protect my baby at all costs, so I needed to be with her, yet you were preparing to potentially
yeah,
leave yourself. And that, so you would say that she was the glue that kept you here, this fierce protection of herself, of her, while you were losing your own self.
Yeah, I think that's because I felt in my, I'm a very intuitive person. I felt inside myself that I could not continue on like I was going. I actually, I didn't understand why I was still alive with the way
Yeah.
I was not getting any sleep. I wasn't eating. I wasn't like, so I didn't really understand why I was still functioning at all. And um,
Was
so I
no one
think
checking,
subconsciously
was
that's
no one
why.
checking on you? Like,
Yeah, they were. I had the greatest help. I had so much, but I was just amazing at masking it. So obviously at night, my husband, bless his heart, but once he sleeps, he sleeps. You know, he's down. He's
yeah,
down for the night. Like
I
I
know.
have to wake him up with like a gong in the morning. You
I
know?
always say, I always say about my husband, the devil could be sleeping beside him and he'd be like, I'll see you in the morning. Like, I'll talk to you then. I gotta get my sleep.
Yeah. So those things like, not having sleep, like
Yeah.
no one noticed. And obviously I wasn't telling anyone. I like, yes, I was tired and I was losing weight, but people thought it was just from the stress of having a newborn and breastfeeding and all those things. But the crying is what kind of, um did me in because that was something I could not hide that much.
Right. And you would, so then the telltale for your husband and other people who knew you would be that you would just have those moments where you would just start to cry and you couldn't control the
Yeah.
tears. Yeah.
Yeah, it was uncontrollable. And I think they also really realized how bad it was because like after a while I got medication. I got first I got sleep medication
Yeah.
to sleep, but I was my mind, my anxiety was more powerful than my sleep medication, so I would still wake up and not sleep.
Oh. And all of this while your hormones are imbalanced, your body is repairing itself. Like this is an act of superhuman strength.
Yeah.
It
I,
really
I
is.
know that now.
It is just insane. And I'm so grateful you are here.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for staying.
I'm
And
very happy I stayed as well.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah, and how do you connect this to for other people? Like how does this happen? How does this work for you?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you know this, but I have a private practice where I help other moms with exactly what I went through. Obviously, again, every single case is different. But before I got pregnant, I was already a coach and a counselor. And, after I got better, I wanted to make sure that I could help. That was sort of my life's mission. It's like a light
Mhm.
bulb went on for me. And so I used my experience, which is definitely not the same experience as every mom
Yeah.
has.
Yeah.
But the fact that I am an unwilling expert on postpartum depression helps a lot because a lot of the women that I see in my practice, they have seen psychiatrists or psychologists before that are either men or women that actually not have had a baby. And I do really believe in their education that they could help, but there's just something that rings different when you talk to someone who actually went through it as well.
I would agree with you. I would agree. That
Yeah.
to me is one of the most, it's a credential. Like if you're going to look at my vagina, you better have one.
Yeah, exactly. Totally, totally. Yeah,
And if you're going to talk to me about hormones, you need to have the hormones that we're
exactly.
talking about, like, because it's that important to me. So I would agree with you. I have so if I look off, it's because I've got a screen behind me and I'm looking at
I
my notes.
figured.
Um, so, one thing that I thought was interesting, and as I was doing all my research on you and all the work that you do, which is just fabulous, I made a card that said, "No one warned me. No one warned me." There are so many things as as a mother. My oldest is 26 almost,
Mm.
and then my youngest is 15. And then my boys are 25 and 22. And no one warned me about certain things.
No.
And so while you're dealing with all of this, then the things that I wasn't warned about is how painful breastfeeding is.
Oh my God. Oh, the horror.
Like, w- I
Ow.
don't know what kid pulled half my nipple off, but it went off. And I was
And
like, where's my nipple? Like, what?
what
Like, it's
happened? Oh
laughable now,
God.
but I remember being like, the
This is not for the
pain,
faint of heart.
the chunk, the scabbing over. So you go and you nurse your baby, and then however long it takes for them to get hungry again. And just as that scab is setting, they come back in for more, stuff. And
Yes.
the thing I struggled with is watching other women just whip it out, latch the baby on, and
Yeah.
in 5 minutes it was done. And there I'm sitting with the premature baby. She takes an hour to feed. She sleeps for an hour and needs another hour feeding. And
So yeah.
I'm dying,
Yeah.
not quite literally, just the
Well,
whole
a little bit
piece.
you are.
Well, well, yes. See, this is what I learned from you as I was researching that words matter. And so even now, as an almost 50-year-old woman, I'm looking at it and I'm saying I was dying. And then I quickly adjust myself to say, but it wasn't that bad.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I just realized that. Thank
That's
you.
the main reason women and moms don't get help early enough. Same for me, but like that is something I give to my clients and my so yeah, the main reason.
It's in a word. I'm dying. And you say, yes. And I'm
Yes,
like, no, but I wasn't really.
but you
And
kind of were.
and you kind of were. And then now that you've prompted that for me, I would say absolutely. I was just really, really good at being the best
And that's another thing
because
that we're taught.
my community was, the people that I looked up to in that community were, and there was just this way of being, and failure might not have been a really good option.
No, because it's being vulnerable is, I think, one of the most scariest things that you can do as a human being. I can't speak for the male experience, of course, but especially for
No.
the female experience, um, that is like in this world, I feel that that's the worst thing that you can do. But at the same time, if you look at it from a mother's perspective, isn't that something that you want your kids to understand and to feel that it's okay to fail and that you learn and how you deal with it? It's like, you don't learn how to ride a bike by just getting up and being amazing at it. You fall down a couple times, then you get up and you're vulnerable by trying. And
Hmm.
so if you look at it from a mother's perspective, a nurturing perspective, you're like, oh, totally, you didn't fail. You can be vulnerable. That's super good. That's a super good quality. But then when we use it on ourselves, we're like, yeah, no, I have to be the best at everything immediately all the time.
Immediately, all the time. It's crazy. And we don't, the vulnerability piece is really interesting because I, it- you know, find someone who loves being vulnerable, right? It's like being naked with your with in a crowd of people and feeling, people looking at you. And so what we try to do is we try to mask, or we try to shield and protect ourselves. And a lot of times, I don't know if this happened to you, so maybe I asked this question. When you tell someone who's a friend of yours that you're struggling, did you have confidence that they would keep your confidence, that they would keep that to themselves? Because lots of women I know, they were like, that
Oh
person.
God, she's struggling. You haven't heard her? Like, oh my God, she's not. Yeah, that's the
Or
way of
you get in
feeling.
a crowd of women, and then, and you're all talking, and the person that you did say, it comes up and you go, no, I'm great. And then they say, well,
Yeah.
that's, like they allude to the fact that you're not, and then something happens. There's this vulnerability that kind of gets pulled out from under you. Did that happen? It happens to people. Did it happen to you?
Um, a little bit in that sense. The thing is, when I had my pregnancy difficulties and my baby, and like, how your life changes, even if you have the best pregnancy and everything is the best, your life still really changes. And for me, that was a very pivotal time in like saying goodbye to some friends or losing some friends. I think both sides of the story, right? So like I changed as a very big person, and like they couldn't necessarily understand or respect that. But yeah, at the same time, it goes both ways, friendship. So I do think I lost slash said goodbye to a couple really good friends.
Wow.
And I now can say that I'm grateful for the time we did have together, but I also understand that right now it's not right now, just now, and probably forever, it's not in the cards for us to be each other's support system. But at the same time, I did gain and deepen the relations that I did have.
Were Did you lose these friendships because you were pregnant?
No, I think it's when you're sick and when you break your leg, everyone's always like, yes, oh, I'm so sad, like we'll come visit you, and then you get better. But the tolerance for people in modern day society for someone not feeling well, mentally, physically, for a longer period is difficult, because people have to get on with their lives and do, like, yeah, do their own things. And so for someone, I think I was sick and mentally also unstable for at least a year and a half. And after a while, patience runs out. At least that's the experience that I've had.
That's really interesting to me because I just wrote down here, not only did you lose your friends, you were losing your body, you were losing your autonomy, you were losing your relationship with your spouse, you were losing the sweet moments that you were having. You weren't independent. You, like you said, you couldn't read a book even. It
Yeah.
was that bad. You were confined to a cage in your home, but it wasn't what you envisioned. You're losing a death of a dream. You were losing all these pieces, and society and the medical system, it isn't built to support that.
No, it
And
isn't.
so what do we do? Because I mean, my heart just breaks. Elizabeth, I'm so sorry.
It was incredibly hard and a horrible time.
Yeah.
But I worked a lot on myself and other things, and I am almost at a point where I can actually say things happen for a reason.
Hmm.
And that's sort of how I've made my peace with it. Some things will always be raw, but it did have consequences for the way I'm living my life now, which BTW is freaking amazing. I'm loving my life. I'm having the best time. But when I see a beautiful pregnant woman with her belly and her hand on her belly, and she's smiling and she's happy. Of course, I don't know the backstory there, but whenever I see that, it hurts. It's like a little jab into my heart, because I never got to experience that. And yeah, that will always be the case. So there will always be very raw moments in there.
So, yeah, I never thought of that. I never thought of that. I didn't. I've known people that have had just all the bedridden, literally, like you're speaking of, and I never really thought about the grief that they would feel if when they see someone after the fact walking down the street, and they never weren't doing that, or that they were doing it but barely, like just
Mm,
hanging on, because that's 9 months of hanging on. And then raising a child is for us, it was 6 years before our youngest child slept. Literally, she would sleep with us, and we were blind. We were so tired. And Dave worked, I mean, it wasn't like he was not working. It was horrific. That endurance run for many people lasts for years and
It's
years.
undoable. If we talk about it factually like this, what the hell are we doing? Why
What?
is this happening?
And
Why
then
are we
we have
still?
more. And then we have more kids. Like, it is wild.
Yes. And then sometimes you get to that point and you're like, is this my life? What is happening? And I can see that you're a very empathetic person and very sensitive to things. And I really share that with you, so that, even makes things experiencing and like experiencing things through other people makes it even harder, It makes it, you feel the pain of others.
Oh, you do. You do. I definitely do. And I have to be really careful about that. Um, because you can take things on that aren't yours.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that no one warned me about was that just because you desire to be a mom doesn't mean you'll take to it.
No, that is such a true thing. Yes.
And so there's fear that comes with that because,
Hmm.
again,
Fear of
there's
failure.
an unexpected, this is unexpected. You're not planning to not take to this. You're
You're
not
like
planning.
but you're
You,
also grown up with, you're brought up with this feeling of like, you're a woman, you're supposed to
yes,
be a mom, you're supposed to
yeah.
be good at it, you're supposed to be nurturing and loving, and like it's, I always think it's a bit like, when you have your soulmate, your partner, it's two halves of a whole, right? And like you complement each other, and that's why some relationships work and some relationships don't work. But when you birth this baby, okay, yes, it's your own flesh and blood, but at the same time, you don't know anything about this human soul. And you have to like make that your own.
Well, I just think Dave and I were talking about this. He said to me, "We didn't know how to do anything." He said, "Do you remember how they showed us how to bath the baby?" And I said, "Yeah, right, right. We didn't know I mean, he didn't really know how to wipe a baby's bum and, let alone, what I just found out, like what the actual thing, the little Velcro strip, if it turns color and stuff, never really knew what that was for, except like just to cinch the kid in, cinch it all in so it doesn't spill out. But when it changes color, that's pretty fabulous, right? Didn't know those things. Just like, some really weird things that we didn't know, but then some really serious things we didn't know.
Yes.
And it's in the serious things that we have this conversation. So we're talking about breastfeeding and all different things. The one piece is that society makes it look easy.
Easy,
When you're
effortless.
looking at Instagram and you see that mom and she's got her baby strapped on, because I wore my babies. So, but I wasn't showing everybody that I was cooking with my kids, and there you are, and it's all,
Fabulous. Yeah, I
and
know.
they look great, and there's other moms who are like, "Do you know what I look like right now? Like,
Yes.
just
Yes.
hanging on
Hanging on.
toothpicks in my eyes, like trying to breathe." Okay, so you talk about postpartum depression. What are the symptoms? What are we looking for here?
That's clear and unclear, difficult. The thing is, as you probably know, most of basically all our medical research has been done on white men, um, who are clearly not women.
And have not
And
had babies.
no,
But
no,
wait, I make my correction. Some of them may look after children, but they haven't undergone
the
the
DNA transference.
body, like the weight on the body. And I'm not meaning physical weight, I'm meaning like the blood, the
Mm.
all the things that the water weight, the support that the muscles do when, everything. thing that the body does to prepare this life.
And mentally too, all the choices that you're unconsciously making nonstop as a mom.
And the study is done on men.
Hmm.
It's
So
flabbergasting,
yeah,
honestly. It
but in general, but you have three things, right? You have the baby blues,
Yep,
which is something almost all moms goes through.
yep,
That doesn't make it okay. That doesn't make it not serious. It's the baby blues is something that you go through about like 4 to 14 days after you've given birth. In this period, you feel very emotionally unstable. There's usually a lot of crying, difficulty to sleep. Um, and this is not science backed, but I usually call it like a mini depression, a mini
sure.
postpartum depression. Like it's a very short, it goes away by itself, but you're just not feeling well. You're like, but that's the hormone calm down, right? Because you're 9 months in and all these hormones go up, go up, go up. And then you give birth and within like half an hour, they drop completely.
Yep,
So that's what the effect of that is. And that usually goes away. So has to be gone within 14 days. Then you have postpartum anxiety and you have postpartum depression. Um, these can have similar symptoms,
yeah,
but mostly it is feeling anxious, feeling a lot of panic, feeling a lot of negative emotions, a lot of crying, but unstoppable crying. Things you can have are intrusions, and intrusions are where you sort of imagine things, see things that could happen. So some moms think about throwing their baby down the stairs. Other moms think about throwing their babies in the trash. For me, personally, I had these like visions when I would be cutting her nails, like those tiny little baby nails. They're very cute, right?
yes.
But I would think like, oh my God, what if I accidentally cut off her fingers? These intrusive thoughts, those are um your mind does that to protect itself, to make up scenarios so that the mind can already see how you would react. But in the case of postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety, those are controlling your life. And then you have postpartum depression, which all has this as well, but you can also experience extreme suicidal thoughts with it. It's a
It,
whole slew.
it is. And there's a difference. There's a difference between normal worry
Hmm.
and what you're speaking about.
Yes. So it's
And there's
normal when your baby makes like sounds like those
yeah,
wake,
they're
unwake
so
moments.
loud, hey?
Oh
Who would have
God.
known babies are so loud?
But if you've gone 24 hours, 48 hours without being able to sleep
Yeah.
because of the noises your baby makes, you're so worried, then it's a symptom.
Okay. Okay, that's really good to know. Um, when so 25, 26 years ago, I had a baby, my first baby. And I remember she was 4 weeks early, 5 weeks early.
Oh.
And and she was fine. And she, went into they brought a little incubator in because she had some jaundice and stuff. And I just was with her. And I remember we stayed for her. The only reason why I wasn't sent home the very next day is because she had jaundice and she was little, like
Yeah.
4 pounds, 8 ounces. So they wanted me to stay and they needed to see her weight get up to 5'2" in order to
Yeah.
let her go. So I stayed, but I just stayed I remember the nurses came in about day 3 and they rolled in a TV with a VCR and they said, we're going to get you to watch this. And it's about baby blues. And I'm like, what are baby blues? Like I had no,
What?
because we had her early, so we didn't have our prenatal classes.
Hmm?
And so I had no idea what that was. And I'm sitting there in my hospital robe. And then the nurse said, would you like to change your clothes and wear clothing? And I said, sure. And it wasn't that I was all like, I was not understanding. It was more about, I was just new to the whole thing that was
Yeah.
going on.
So when you
You
have
know,
to when you get a driver's license, you gotta pass an exam, right? But having a baby, Here you go.
Yeah, and the orientation is what I'm
Mm.
thinking about there. Like that orientation, here's how these things could be. But what we're missing, and I think maybe you would be advocating for this, is what about the check-ins? Like the check-ins, in 2 months, in 3 months, in 4 months, in 5 months, and the check-ins, how often are you encouraging people to check in on one another?
Um, So there's a couple of clinical methods that we use. So you have the GAD-7 questionnaire, which is just a general anxiety scale. It's very simple, just like 6 or 7 questions, and then you can like very easily as a counselor or a therapist, you can see how anxious a person is. So if they have an anxiety disorder, then you have the Edinburgh postpartum depression scale, which is also a very important one, that is specifically for women, and like the higher you score, the worse you got it basically. And but
Sure.
those are very clinical tools, I would say. So it really kind of depends on what kind of mom you are, because some moms are really like, they're very set in their ways, they have everything organized, they don't mind filling out questionnaires, they don't mind being open about some things. But other moms are very more internal, I would say, and you have to ask them questions through and through. um but I would say every single week a postpartum mom needs to have a mental health checkup, if I'm being really honest.
Mm. I agree with you. I was hoping you'd say that because I just think it's essential. We're bringing in, when you think about the dynamics of what we're actually doing,
Yes.
there's a person inside of our bodies, and just as a man has a reaction to when the baby gets home, because the man, like your partner's life changes as well. So
Yeah.
that's on top of all of the other things that, and it's on top of that you're being touched all day, and they could look at you and you're like, I swear, you look at me like that again and your eyes are going to be on the floor. Like,
Gonna
don't,
kill you. Yes.
yes,
Don't breathe.
don't, yeah, breathe the wrong way. Like if you look and you brush the back of me,
I would like hiss like a cat sometimes if he did something wrong. I would go like, go away.
it's a very real thing.
Yeah.
They don't get it. And
No.
it's not for any other reason. It's just that we have a full-time job now, and they
Hmm.
have a full-time job.
No, we have 3 full-time jobs, Lori.
Well,
We have 3 full-time jobs. It's 24/7. That's 3 8-hour shifts.
yes, you're right. And that was my next point is it's like we're not ready for the all-nighters and the working overtime and the night shift and the day shift, and when your partner doesn't know that, like, they need their sleep so that they can go to their day job to keep the cycle and to keep everything working because that's their contribution. But there's also this other piece, and you saying three jobs is totally true. And
Yeah.
most of us go home to our own homes without people living there, and we then try to do all of this,
Yeah. And
and
it's
we
supposed to be
wonder why
normal,
we're
right?
exhausted.
And but also on top of I find, the physical exhaustion to be already a very important thing, right? But that is just one thing. The thing that I think that's driving women crazy
Yep.
and depressed, and as a society being generally toxic, is that there is so little recognition for these 3 full-time jobs that we're doing. And I'm not saying, like, my husband's great, he's an amazing father, he changed all the nappies for the first 2 weeks. But I'm a mom, like, we get no recognition almost for things. Yes, like we in again, this is exactly what I'm doing, what you were doing before, right? Yes, we do get it a little bit here and there. But when my husband goes to doctor's appointments, he gets showered with praises. And then his reaction is always like, yes, I'm literally just doing the absolute bare minimum. What do you think about my wife? She's doing absolutely everything. And bless his heart, that's amazing that he does that. But that's
Sure.
not the case for everyone.
It isn't the case for everybody. And and as you speak it, it's, um, this is what I've been struggling with. And this has been sort of this theme that I've been struggling with for the last while. And my daughters are now of the 26 and 15 and having these conversations. And we're talking about suppression. We're talking
Mm.
about our voices. We're talking about why do we exhaust ourselves? And this was really interesting. My youngest daughter and I were driving out of the city one day, and this was just after New Year's. And I said to her, honey, what do you want me to change this year?
That's nice.
What can I change this year? And I said, and and you're gonna tell me, and then I'm gonna tell you what I think you could change. And
What'd she say?
she looks at me and she says, you don't know when to stop.
That's a mirror right there, right?
And I was like, okay, so why don't you just put your words back in your mouth?
And we'll just ignore that this ever happened.
And I looked at her and I said, yeah. I
But
said,
let me ask you this, like, what other option do you have as a mom? And because that's what I'm struggling with. I exactly know what you mean. Like, and my husband says all the time, honey, just relax, it'll be fine. It'll be okay. But the reason it's fine and the reason it's okay is because I don't stop.
I know this. This is my from as like I'm speaking this from hindsight. This is not like this is my little angel child saying, you know, you don't know when to stop. And I have just found my career. I love podcasting. I love what I do.
You're amazing at it, by the way.
Thank you. And I don't know when to freaking stop because, like, I have done all of the things and I've done them well. And I know I've done them well. But it's because I had to juggle, like you said, if I wanted a job on the side, now I've got 4 jobs. I'm working 4 jobs. Because if 3 jobs is morning shift, afternoon, and night shift, then, and this again, you and I are having this conversation with the sacred knowledge that our partners, I was gifted with a man who supported me 1,000%.
Me
I
too.
had incredible mother-in-law and incredible mom. And I had some really great friends. That was my privilege. It was really beautiful. I still struggled. It it doesn't matter.
It
It
doesn't matter.
all is in our heads. It's what we perceive the world to be.
And what
And
we
there's
think it needs to be, right?
well,
What
how
we
we
need to
think
be.
it. Yeah, but perception of what we need it to be because we want um we want to show up for ourselves maybe in the way that we weren't shown up for.
Hmm.
We want to do all these things that maybe if we weren't parented right, we want to make sure we get it done right away. So there's all of this kind of pressure, and we've also left our careers. If we want to have another one, then what's the juggle?
Yeah.
It's
I always say that like again, I wouldn't want to be anything else than a mom, but the amount of work capital, and I'm not talking about money, I'm talking about just my
yeah.
position, like my worth on the job market, it's just like gone, especially in those first few years after your kids are born
Oh,
and you're like taking on the brunt of being a good mom as you think you should be. Like you can't do it all well enough
no, and then someone says to me when my youngest daughter is in kindergarten, what are you going to do now that she's
with
in
all your free
school?
time.
Cry?
Catch up on the 10,000 laundry loads I still haven't done. Yeah.
Maybe actually, and then we say to ourselves, oh gee, I don't know how to self-care.
Yeah.
Well, no, we don't know how to self-care. I don't know how to love myself because quite frankly, I gave it away. And I am
Yes.
relearning that. And that's the gift of menopause. That's the gift for me, relearning what did I give and
Away. How do we get it
away?
back?
And for women, I want to speak to that piece. That piece is we give away, and we're so familiar with the cortisol hit that happens when we give away that nurturing. We think of all the things that are supposed to happen. We catastrophize
Mm-hmm.
for the day ahead because it's soccer, it's piano, it's ballet, it's snacks, it's making sure they're fed. And heaven forbid, I was just talking to someone the other day, their child has type 1 diabetes. So now there's insulin, there's proper food, there's all these things. So you're catastrophizing your whole day and you're driving and you're preparing. And then the question when your kids sort of become into themselves,
Who am I
who
now?
am I?
What do I do for enjoyment? That's something so I think I got better through a mix of things. So obviously
Mm,
medication. I had antidepressants, but
yep,
I was also forced to get out of the house because I was kind of a hermit towards like, the really bad period. So
yep,
I had like day trips where I had to go away for half an hour from my baby, which was difficult. I
yeah,
had to move my body, not necessarily sports, but just really like being movements, because that did help. And the last thing is mindfulness and meditation. And I had tried it a couple times over the years, but it never really stuck. And at that point, I was like, yeah, well, what do I have to lose, right? It's like this or death. And so I did it, and that was one of the best decisions I think I made, because that really did help me also with all the difficult times that were going on. But that is something I teach a prepartum workshop, which is basically how to mentally prepare for the fourth trimester. And
yes.
something I do in there that is so, so, so important, I find, is that the moms and I, we go through a list. We make a list. What makes you happy? What do you get enjoyment for? So for me, it's like reading a good book, getting a good cup of coffee, going to the bookstore for an hour, buying myself flowers, reading a magazine, those things. And then I help them divide it up in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, maybe even a whole day. And they have lists like this, and I print them out during the workshop. I wrap them as sort of in foil. I don't know how you actually call it in English, but it's plastified, I would say. And I tell them, you're gonna go home now with this list, and obviously a couple other things. And you're gonna stick it on the fridge, and you're gonna like drag your husband or your partner by his or her like arm, and you're gonna be like, look at this. If you see me cry, or if you see me sad, or you think something's wrong, you go to this list and you force me to do something off this list. And then every day, as long as it takes till I'm happy again, and then it's you keep doing it, but like in less intense doses, of course. But yeah.
That, where have you been all my life? Where were you
Yeah.
25 years ago?
Sorry.
I
It's those
miss
small things that
you.
we don't think about, right? But we have to do, and we owe it to ourselves to freaking do it, because you're only as good as a mom for your baby if you feel good.
Yes, yes, you're right.
You can't
Okay,
show up
so
to be the
then
most amazing mom unless you're happy.
you're right. And so then that leads me to this next question. What do you say to people who, so there's discipline and routine? Because that's what you're basically saying. You're saying
Yeah.
this is a loose routine that needs to happen. One of these things. I'm not your partner's not going to bring you flowers. You, Lori Clark, I'm taking children and responsibilities. You go walk, get in the car, and go get your own flowers. Pick it, do it, right? That's what you're saying. You're saying something for yourself. Because
Yeah.
gifts are great, but yeah, like doing
Gift for
something for
yourself.
you. So then what do you say to people who are like, yeah, I that's a discipline and I don't like the word discipline. So then you add the word routine in there. How do we give ourselves permission
Yeah.
to, you know, when what we've done in this conversation, and we reference it because, you know, this is the pattern. We were modeled this way of, no, 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 it's not really as bad as it is, but it's really, really bad, but it's not really bad. Like
It's
it
not
can't
bad,
be that
but it
bad.
is.
And I
But
don't want to look like I'm complaining. And I don't want this whole podcast to be just this negative view, you know,
yeah,
all those different things. So we have all these weird, dumb, I'm using the word dumb, ways of connecting to this. This is just irrational. It's
yeah,
irrational.
it is. And that is the reason I think the reason so many people in the world are currently struggling with anxiety and depression and things. The self-discipline and routine that it takes, the effort that it takes to take care of yourself has become hard. I don't know
Yes.
if it's always been hard because I can only speak to my own life experience, of course, but um it is one more thing you have to do.
Yeah.
And I'm honest, I also sometimes struggle with that because I know my mental health is great when I sleep on time. So if I go to
Mm.
bed at 9:30 p.m. and sometimes that isn't fun. I want to be fun. I want to be like, oh, let's go out till 4 a.m.,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
woo.
Yeah.
But I know I have to have that discipline for myself in order to show up for myself and be my best version and be happy. So I always encourage myself and my clients to do the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, you show up for yourself with your routine, discipline, give it whatever name you want to give it. 20% of the time, you give yourself permission to slack off because that's also part of the equation.
Slacking off. Okay, that works, but I'm going to pretend that I'm not going to say what you know I'm going to say, which, you know, we could stay on this topic forever. We just need to start giving ourselves permission, and we need to hear the words that are saying, take care of your body. You gave some really practical things, that list of things. Like, what makes you happy? Is it puzzling? Then go and
Go
puzzle. Crochet,
embroidery.
like something. Is it watching a show? Go
Yes.
and do it. Just do it.
But a big side note here is that if you're together, if you have a partner, I do firmly believe that you should ask for help from them because they want you to be happy just as much as you want them to be happy. And it's okay. And it's actually very good for your relationship if you enlist them as your cheerleader, as your coach in this.
That would mean that the person that's asking for help is willing to take direction, is willing to trust them with themselves. And the piece here, the other piece that I think is connected to that, and with your experience in and your master's degree and all the different things that you know about society and sociology and all the different aspects of human development, I think you have something to say here. And the connection is this: we are not ready, and no one warns the men that this is actually happening. So if there's no warning, and the man feels just plain rejected, like
Mm,
his life is over. What? We just brought this baby in, and now, like, she doesn't even want to look at me, and she
yeah.
speaks poorly to me, and like there's all these things, all the things that were just in this conversation. Then it's that has to go. There has to be this connection of communication,
Yes.
because then if you're going to look at that guy or that woman and you're going to say, hey babe, help me, I have to
Yes.
trust you, then that's the thing. It's being able to trust.
And that starts, obviously it starts in the beginning of your relationship, but it also starts already in pregnancy. But, you see the divorce rates for couples that have kids between 0 and 2, astronomical. But I can do 10 more podcasts on that. But
Well, my friend had my best friend had it was second marriage, and he had children. And so he went over one day and with his babies, and I said, "Oh God, I got, how can I help? How can I help? You know, because when someone looks at you and says, "Oh my God, you look so tired."
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, yeah, shut up. Like, it's just
Yeah.
like, what? So, how can I help you? You know, how can I help you? And he said that he and his wife were watched this video, and they, and I don't know if this is fact, but it was funny regardless. They had put electrodes on parents that were with newborn and children under 3, and they realized that like they had the same issues as someone who was held being held hostage, like
Yeah.
because
I
the
can
sleep
imagine that.
deprivation, the lack of food, like the
Yeah.
cortisol, the
Yeah.
crazy sort of, you know, something drops and you just about jump through the roof, and
Yeah.
the inability to process, the brain fog, all those things. It's very, very true, and we just need to kind of acknowledge that it is a it's a torturous situation, and we
Yes.
do it over and over again, and we love so hard, and we
We
love
love so hard.
so deep, and we love so wide. Now, can we talk about strategies? Because what is it that you talk to? So you go, you have 3 classes that you do, that you conduct in your practice. So it's during pregnancy, it's after, and then you want to raise awareness for the 4th trimester, and that's the piece that is so important. It's,
Yeah.
well, it's all really important.
Yeah, yeah. It's more, I have one course is called SOS Postpartum, and that is mainly for the women who are in the thick of it, in the 3 a.m. feedings. They're Googling like, oh,
Yeah,
will it ever stop? Will it ever sleep again? That's for them. Then I
yeah,
have the Confident Motherhood course, which is more for, I think, it's obviously still okay if you just had a baby, but more for
yeah,
the moms who really wanted to be a mom, and then are moms, and then are like, wait a second, this is not what I anticipated it would be, and I'm not happy with myself. And then there's the pregnancy course, which actually yeah, makes prepares you for the 4th trimester. And I think that's the most preventative course. So like we're not gonna assume that you're gonna get a postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety, but we're gonna put all help pieces in place to make sure that if you're not feeling well, whether that's severely postpartum depression or a tiny bit of baby blues, you will have the tools that are tailored to you to make sure you get through that, and
yes,
together with your partner. So it's
very
all about
nice.
prevention and knowing what to do when shit hits the fan.
Absolutely. It just needs to be help. I'm a mom.
What do I do?
Exclamation mark.
Yeah, but
Please
there's
help
so
me.
many, there's so many courses that you get, your prenatal courses. It's like, okay, how's the birth? What is gonna happen? How do you need to push? How do you need to breathe? And that's all fine, and that's very, very important. But
Yeah.
giving birth is like a tiny blip on your parenthood journey.
Well, because damage can happen with the birth. You can have, I mean, it's crazy. The kinds of damage, not only that we suffer, but then if you have stitches, or you have stitches in your rectum, or you have stitches as a from a cesarean section, any of that. Like, in what world, Elisabeth, do I had a cesarean on my 4th child. In what world do you have someone cut through 5 layers of your body and move things aside,
Mm,
pull out a being, and then say, the next day, you need to get up and walk.
yeah, yeah. Get up, go to the bathroom yourself.
The going to the bathroom piece, I, no one prepared me for the pain. The pain. It was off the charts. And I had a midwife on my 4th child, and the pain of recovery, even my midwives did not share with me.
No, wow, that's yeah. Well, here in the Netherlands, so if you give birth vaginally and you give birth before 6 p.m. in the hospital, you're kicked out the same day. If you have a cesarean, you stay, I think, for 3 days and then you go home.
You know what is funny about this is well, I would say it's not funny. I shouldn't say it's funny.
It's, yeah, it's
But I had
like,
four
yeah.
kids. So there I was. And my kids needed to go to school. So I had my daughter on the 16th of August, and then school started on the 6th. And I show up, and my friend says to me, "How did you get here?" I said, "I drove." She said, "Pardon me?" I said, "What's the big deal?" And there I am. I got this sling and my little baby
Baby.
munchies in there. And she goes, "You had a cesarean." Yes.
Yeah, still 3 other kids to take care of.
She said, "What happens if you had to jam the brakes on?" You're like, you would open your incision. And I went, "Oh, uh,
But I didn't. It's not that
I,
bad.
well, firstly, I didn't jam the brakes on, but I had no freaking idea. I had no clue."
No.
These little details are really, really important, and which is why you're so helpful and it's so important. And you're not, I don't just see you focusing on the anxiety and the depression, and that is a major focus. It's the reason why you're bringing people in. But what you're trying to do and what I'm seeing you do is to say, let's map it out, let's strategize, let's give you some things, some tools, some skills where people who have gone before have not been able to do it. Let me do it because I've already been here. And my here was the hot flame of hell. And I've come out the other side and I've lived to tell this story. And
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure that 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 my information is out there so that anybody who is feeling the way I've been feeling can find it. It can be there for them. And if it's just some simple gratitude procedures, or like what you said, what makes you happy? Just a question.
Yeah.
What I hear from you is it's embracing the change and it's finding a balance in our lives.
I always say I help you become the mom you want to be.
That is really important. That's really important. I wrote something here too. So my reflection back is there was always a crisis, right? Because you got snotty, no, I don't even, we
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
even say
There's
this.
always a crisis.
Like
Yes.
poo
Or
running down the
multiple.
leg, you get in the car, you're all ready to go, and then vomit happens. Like
You.
it's whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I do remember one time I had my time away, and I was wearing this really pretty sundress. And I was standing in the grocery line getting some groceries, and this man was just like staring at my breasts.
Yes.
And I
Delete.
remember thinking, You're disgusting." And then I looked down and I had milk coming out of my shirt. I was like, "Oh, okay, okay." But
That's the crisis there.
right.
Yes.
So we go out, we have a crisis, but then there's always this breaking point. You can have one crisis, another crisis, but then there's this breaking point that
Yeah.
elicits the change. And then the change happens. And then there's this thing that is so crucial. It's repairing the damage, or repairing or restoring the bruise or the fracture or that thing.
Yeah.
And then from there, we have to move into a space of reclaiming what we just learned, or what is ours, or what we lost. And in order to do all of this, it requires some reflection. It requires the
Some
ability to be
self-reflection.
soft and introspective.
Yeah, I usually like to think, because you just said, like, we have to mend, we have to repair. But the
Yeah.
thing about repairing and mending is that usually something is not as strong as before because there is inherently a break in there. But I
Yep.
try to focus on, and not in a way of toxic positivity, but to make it even better. So where
Ah,
something broke first, you have the break. Let's just say very simple, a bone. You break the bone, there's
Sure.
always going to be a fracture in there, right?
Yep.
But what I think we are capable of as women and as moms is to not only repair the break and mend it, but to put safeguards in place so that it's stronger than before, so that we actually learn something from it and are kinder to ourselves after it.
That's beautiful. Yes, that's really good wisdom. Using the bone analogy, because what you just said, it's like you can break it, but then there's always going to be that fracture point there.
Yeah.
And then repairing it so that we can see and love ourselves. So as we draw to a close, which I could talk to you all day,
Me
but I
too.
know
I see the time. I'm like, oh God, have we been there for so long? I can go on and on.
we're talking about routines and you're probably off to bed somewhere. Like I'm just starting my day, so
Yes, I'm gonna chill on the couch with my husband after this because tomorrow is my
Yay.
birthday.
Tomorrow. Okay, so wait, your daughter just had a birthday?
Yes, it's insane. So her birthday is on the 18th.
Yep.
My birthday is on the 22nd, and my husband's birthday is on the 30th.
Oh my.
So we have like a full month of partying.
Happy birthday to you all. That's
Thank
just
you.
marvelous. I
Yes.
love it. That's
Yeah.
a whole month of celebration.
Yes.
So what is the takeaways here? Can you offer, if someone's listening right now and they've identified that they are in this spot, do you have something that just off the cuff, um, just an exercise or something that they could do to ground themselves and bring them to a space so that they can begin to look for assistance?
Yeah, so I think there's like two things. I think the first thing is that you should really tell yourself and honor or yourself in the case that you deserve the best version of yourself for you to be happy. And um the only person who's gonna get you there is you. So you have to ask for help and go get it. And then I would say what is a good grounding exercise is talk to the person you feel closest, trust the most, that's the least judgmental. So most of the time that's a partner, maybe that's a parent,
Yeah.
a friend, and specifically say the words, I need help. Those three words are extremely important, and they don't make you weak. They make you stronger.
I love that. They don't make you weak. I need help makes you stronger. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lori. It was an amazing talk. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you are fabulous.
Thank you.
And again, the joy of my life is being able to share with people
Mm.
the stories and give people um like an opening in their moment where they aren't able to see. And it's in this moment where people aren't able to see and they're listening, and your experience has opened that for someone. This conversation, you gotta know, is gonna change one person's life.
That's the goal.
And that to
But that's
me,
your superpower, Lori, that you facilitate that. So also kudos to you.
thank you. It is, I absolutely love what I do. And
Mm.
this is what I do now after my daughter went to kindergarten.
Good for you.
So thank you so much. We will provide all of the socials and all of the details. And so
Perfect.
thank you so much, Elisabeth. You are I wish I could just
Yeah,
hug
me
you so
too.
tight.
You're so delightful.
So are you. And I want to squeeze you.
Yeah, me too. We'll just squeeze each other like we're just squeezing, you
Yay.
know.
Well, you never know. One day we'll meet. You never know.
Definitely.
But thank you for your beautiful insight. Thank you for the work. Thank you for making your life the work and bringing people into the journey. You are inspiring, and I'm so glad you're here. So thank you so much.